This video is for senior sales reps, and you want to adapt your outbound strategy after this one. Want to know the difference between reps who underperform and the top dogs? Top performers only care about three things: pipeline, win rates, and time to close. But that in itself is not going to cut it when you're starting from scratch, which is why we're here. Anyone can build pipeline over the long run, but if you want to start making commissions sooner, which accounts are you going to go after then? Who are you going to prioritize? How are you going to approach them? We'll get into all of these and more, and by the end of this video, you'll have a clear picture of how to build pipeline strategically to crush your quota this year. You know it, prospecting and outbound is the surest way to build pipeline because unlike inbound, it's within your control. But so are other things that you've likely been disregarding, like sales velocity, approach, and timing, among others, when building your strategy. And guess what? Ramp will take longer and you'll underperform. But that's all gonna change, and you'll learn how to make smarter moves. Moves which I've used over and over again to hit my targets, and it works. Essentially, you want to treat your outbound efforts just like you would build a portfolio where your currency is time. So with that in mind, we'll cover what you should do, how, and when. First of all, you don't just want to generate leads, but generate the right leads, which starts by building a list of target accounts. You'll need to make sure that you have a healthy mix of small, large, existing, and new companies, and throw different industries into the mix because all of these factors affect sales velocity. Sales velocity means how fast you're making money, and you calculate it by multiplying the number of ops, deal size, and win rates, then dividing it by the time it takes to close the deal. Ultimately, you want to balance out your efforts in a way that maximizes sales velocity, so you need to understand what that looks like across different segments and industries. Here's one way to visualize it. You're seeing a chart of your customer segments by size and industry, where win rates are on the y-axis and time to close is on the x-axis. To get here, start by creating 3 op cohorts for your small, mid, and large deals, and fill out the metrics for each of them. What is the average deal size for the cohort? How long does it usually take to generate and close these ops? And what is your average win rate? You can go further and do this same analysis by deal type, meaning net new or expansion, by industry, and even by product line as well, because all of these impact time to close. For example, companies in the banking industry will have longer decision-making processes than companies in e-commerce, and if your product is business critical, companies will run a longer, more thorough risk analysis than if your product is nice to have. Prioritize faster ones. Use these factors to define your activity volume in each cohort to start closing deals sooner. Hint: it should look something like an hourglass. Start filling your pipeline with more small deals that close faster to get revenue flowing, and as you get closer to pipeline coverage, shift your attention toward generating smaller number of big and medium-sized deals. Then as you approach the end of year, do the reverse and close more small deals in the last minute, because lots of small wins add up. Hold on, we're not done yet, because execution is key. How are you going to stack the odds in your favor? The long story short is by focusing on what you can control, and that's your productivity and approach. James Clear, the author of Atomic Habits, points out that instead of relying on motivation alone, build habits so you don't have to think about what needs to get done. And if there's one thing you want to get into the habit of, is spending enough time on outbound. I suggest blocking off at least 30% of your time for outbound over the course of the week. I was at my most productive when we were forced to batch all our cold calls into 2 days and set meetings for the other 3. This way you avoid task switching and are able to get more done without feeling overwhelmed. Once you've batched your tasks, think about what tools are at your disposal to plow through them faster. Tools constantly evolve, and so should your approach. One cool example I've seen recently is a rep using ChatGPT to skim through a company's 10K report as a way to speed up research. Or if you want a more control take, use Command F to search for a keyword in the report when looking for a way in. Talking about approach, you want to define 3 things. Think about how you can break into the accounts. Do you have existing connections at the target company for a direct approach? Any second-degree contacts who can refer you? Or do you have to go in cold? What's your strategy going to be? Looking to close a mega deal or land and expand? Well, if your goal is to generate revenue sooner, you want to go for more land and expand deals in the beginning and then balance out your approach later on. Lastly, the thing that often gets overlooked is how you spread out activity throughout the year. You want to front-load volume for the first half of the year so your efforts will still pay off within the period. Now, before we wrap things up, there's one last piece to the puzzle, and that's timing. Wouldn't it be amazing to reach out to the right prospects at the right time? You know, instead of having to do guesswork. Well, with tools like 6sense and Demandbase, you have access to ICP and prospect stage of awareness, so you can take the right approach while there's still time. If you're not using buyer intent data in your outreach, you can still factor in industry trends like Black Friday and holidays when targeting e-commerce companies, and ramping up activity when prospects are working versus slowing down when they're likely on a vacation. Capacity is another one of those things I've overlooked once. When working at a value-added reseller, we had a small engineering team taking care of installation, and I booked enough deals to keep them busy for 3 months straight. Now, obviously I wasn't going to start for 3 months, so I started selling standalone products that we made a profit off and didn't require any hands-on work. If you also work with solutions where capacity bottlenecks can occur, plan for these in advance and balance out your campaigns across product lines to avoid dry seasons. And when do you call it quits? You know, for the time being at least. Well, based on your quota, you should have a pretty good idea of what's your minimum velocity to still hit target, and use that to define how much time you want to spend breaking into each account before postponing it to a later period. If you found these tips useful and are hungry for more, check out my video on how to crush your quota, or check out one of YouTube's recommendations right here. I'd appreciate if you liked and subscribed as well, because it helps me keep sharing experiences like this for free. Now go put these tips to good use, and see you next week.